This is the Hard Question Podcast. I'm Blanquita Cullum. We're going to talk about Mexico. Great getaway for so many. Unless you are the many who are trying to leave Mexico and come into this country. For generations, Mexico has become increasingly dangerous, and it has a long established history of corruption in the government. In fact, allegedly, many government officials have turned a blind eye to billions of dollars in drug trafficking, gun trafficking. We have seen an escalation in violence from gang warfare that has targeted many innocents. And then there is the issue of extreme poverty. There's a brand new issue on board, however, and that is ISIL terrorists who are looking at the southern border of Mexico, which they're going to try to breach to be able to wreak havoc here in the United States with terrorist activities. Well, should we be worried? President Obama says that border security is better than ever. And this is at the same time that he is trying to manipulate the legalization of undocumented migrants coming in from Mexico to the United States. Now we have the Border Patrol, the U.S. Customs. They've increased their numbers of agents up to about 18,000 who are patrolling the borders. And also, they've increased their budget to $10.7 billion. Well, is that enough? Is that a good enough solution? Is that going to solve the problem there? I think we need to look at Mexico and go back into the history of Mexico. Recently, I saw a very, very fabulous documentary. It was very interesting, and it was called La Red Nazi en Mexico. And what it was, chronicling the proliferation of espionage and spies throughout Mexico, in particular into Mexico City. You had the Ministry of Propaganda from Hitler, Joseph Goebbels, who was very interested in trying to reach government levels of top leadership, including the president of Mexico, in any way he could. I mean, we're talking any way. And then he wanted to make very strong allies with the business leaders, and he wanted to get exports of raw materials like, let's say, oil and tungsten and mercury, because Mexico was becoming an ally to Germany. Well, there is another problem there. The way it was being penetrated through the media, their popularity was growing through film, through radio, and through the newspapers. There were two newspapers that were solidly in alliance with Germany. Well, there was another worry. The worry that was the rumor that was being spread in the United States that you had Nazis that were going to try to target the southern border to launch attacks into the United States. Thank goodness we had a very good visionary and a great leader in Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because what he did was to offer an olive branch to Mexico. And that meant that what he did was he provided vital needs such as goods for war. He also included concessions such as loans. And what he asked from Mexico was that they secure that they were going to become demilitarized, and they did. Well, as we say on radio, there's really nothing new. Things happen again. It only becomes revamped and recycled. So I have a few hard questions for you. And I would like to ask you to join in the conversation, and please give us your comments. Let's talk about a few things. First of all, here is my first question. Why is our current president and this long list of presidential candidates and hopefuls not establishing a serious long-term strategy to ensure Mexico's stability? Who in Mexico is really concerned with the people who are fleeing their country? And why is Mexico not concerned about such a mass exodus of their people? Is the U.S. encouraging a national security crisis by this short-sightedness? What would the economic effect of a modern-day cross-border WPA project, a Franklin Roosevelt WPA project, what would that effect have not just on the United States and Mexico, but the entire Western Hemisphere? Is the United States doomed to fail a group of people who are coming to this country just to get a better life, to get a sense of their own self-determination? Or is the United States going to let down its own citizens by adding a bigger economic burden on the shoulders of its citizens and potentially create a huge national security crisis? These are hard questions that must be answered. First of all, for our national security, and down the road for our sovereignty, but not just our sovereignty, for the sovereignty of Mexico and ultimately Latin America. I'm very anxious to get your considerations, so join in the conversation. For the Hard Question podcast, I'm Blanquita Cullum.